Good evening and welcome to Face to Face. I'm your host Niresh Eliathambi. Now, we've had two major elections just a few months ago, and we're coming up with another election which is supposed to happen somewhere around April or May. But what are the lessons that we can learn to strengthen our democracy and to make sure that in the future our elections are even better managed, and that all voters get to exercise their franchise? And we were privileged to have at both of those previous elections teams from the European Union and the election observation mission, as it was called, has now presented a wonderful 70-page report which was just presented to the government. And to discuss this, we have with us this evening the chief observer of the election monitoring observation mission of the EU, Mr. Nacho Sanchez Amor. Welcome, Mr. Sanchez, or Nacho, as you like to be called.
Good evening, Neeraj.
Yes, and of course, you've been on our program before, right after the presidential election. You did us the honor of coming in, speaking with us and educating our viewers as to what was going on. But now that the report is out, tell us, what are the salient points in it?
Well, the final product, our legacy, humble legacy to the country, is this final report with an assessment that is not checking before, let's say, European standards. We didn't do so. It could be depicted as colonial thing. No, we are checking the compliance of Sri Lanka with the international covenants that Sri Lanka has signed.
Right.
Meaning, this is important to say, we are not trying to introduce another foreign, let's say, standards. And an assessment and recommendations. Recommendations in the most humble and friendly manner, because I have to say we are very happy, as probably we commented in the first occasion you invited me. The elections were very professionally conducted, very well resolved. There was a lot of transparency, information. The friends of this country were concerned about the Aragalaya, meaning Aragalaya was so shaking period that it was a lot of political interest in know how the country is coming back to the normality. Now, with two elections in a row, we can say plainly that luckily your country overcome this period, complicated, understandable what happened, but that finally the country has come back to normalcy, meaning the political change has to be driven by democratic electoral meanings. And this is exactly what we observe and what we praise in this report.
Well, that is high praise indeed, because quite apart from all your other titles, you are a member of the European Parliament. Yes. Representing Spain.
Yes.
So you know all about democratic institutions and values, and of course all those conventions which Sri Lanka is a party to. And in your recommendations, you have referred to many of these conventions, which actually shape Sri Lankan law as well.
Yeah.
There's one which I particularly, one recommendation which I particularly am fond of. When I read it, I was very happy to see it, which is that you have recommended that certain laws be repealed or amended in order to have better elections, basically, and they include the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
Yes.
Which, of course, this government, the NPP, had agreed to do in its manifesto, and which people such as civil society and Journalists have been calling for this to be repealed for over 40 years or more, actually. So this is a key area. But there are other acts as well which are referred to here. For example, the Online Safety Act. And that's a very interesting aspect, because nowadays everything is online, isn't it? It's just going global and going viral within seconds. So how do you see the future when it comes to elections and the online world, basically?
Well, first, regarding what we have called plainly restrictive laws, so we received the message for years.
Yes.
Professionals of information saying these kind of laws that could be used in a different way, whatever is the text or the intention, has created a kind of self-restraint in professionals, especially in professionals. We know very well how the journalist has been asking for the repealing. Then the European Union have asked before about this, the repealing of these restrictive laws. We are repeating the same in this context of the election observation, because inevitably freedom of expression is a key part of the democratic environment to conduct proper elections. And for that reason, we mention these laws as a problem. Sometimes let's say the trick or the alibi could be, the laws are there, but the practice is different. No. Let's change the law, because this is the only way to be sure that in the future another interpretation, more restrictive of the law, or the use of this law by law enforcement in a different way, could create problem. No, the problem is not only in the practice, it's in the text of the law. They are not in compliance with several international covenants on civil and political rights. And then the right thing to do is to repeal. The current government, as you said, has committed to repeal the law, to amend the Online Safety Act. But that means we don't want in any way that the state could be not prepared for the terror. The terrorist activities is real. It's happening in every part of the world. Then, of course, the government has to think how to balance the security of the people with the rights of the people in a wise way. And there are multiple examples in the world in which the protection of the freedom of expression is solid. At the same time, there are security measures in anti-terror legislation. And for that reason, we understand that this is not about to disarm the state, but on the contrary, to have a proper way to tackle this phenomenon of terrorism. On social media is still a very powerful tool to public engagement in politics, in many things. The singular citizens, some years ago, they were not able maybe to send a letter to the director of a journal, and then
letter to the editor.
Yes, letter to the editor. It's the only way in which I remember when I was young. The only way a particular citizen could address the public opinion. Now you have the possibility to address the public opinion, to share your ideas, and this is a powerful, interesting, and empowering tool for the citizen. At the same time, we have to be aware of what is the trend. The social media were at the beginning more neutral, or more the way in which the anonymity of the social media was used was not so harmful. But lately, social media has become a place in which you can throw hate speech, disinformation, operations of influence, that there are other things to do, and then we have to tackle with this. This is not an issue only in Sri Lanka, as you can imagine. There is but this we have a very powerful tool examining during this period from mid-August to mid-October the social media. There is a very interesting X-ray of what has been the trends, and like many other, the social media has been used for political purposes, not saying so directly, because if you have an account pro this or other candidate, okay, this is an account in X in which the people is supporting one candidate. Now the problem is this kind of operation, they always appear with some kind of anonymity
Yes.
In some occasions produced by bots, not by real persons, with person managing hundreds of accounts, with people hiring or paying some real person to use their accounts to pass a political message without any kind of disclosure of this traffic of money. There are many aspects of the social media we have to deal with to have a clean environment for the political campaign.
Now, let me ask you a question which is bound to come up in throughout this year, especially. Meta, that's the owner of Facebook and so on, they announced that they are going to stop fact-checking. What is this going to do to social media and specifically for elections? Because at the moment there is fact-checking, and of course what that means is that at least there's some way to ensure that the truth does get out.
Yeah.
But now, if there is no fact-checking by Meta, anyone can basically say anything, and it's going to take a lot of time because they're going to a system of community notes, which takes a while.
Well, it takes a while, and you need a kind of army of people having the time to check and to debunk some information. And this is a trend. This is a trend linked mainly to the fact that these companies finally are being converted in the toy of some billionaires. This is the problem. Because if it is a real company, having shares and having people taking care of the quality of the product or the services you are putting in the market, but if a billionaire like Elon Musk is using the social media he owns for, let's say, advancing a far-right agenda in Europe, this is only one person, one billionaire trying to shape the public opinion. For what purpose? It could be ideological. Mr. Musk, it could be extreme right activists helping the extreme right fascists in Europe. It could be a way to gain some ground for new businesses. What is happening with Greenland is a fact. Meaning, I don't know what happened, but when I open my X account, the first tweet is always Elon Musk. That means the system, the algorithms that are always providing to myself, that I'm a politician trying to look for political information, immediately you receive that kind of thing. The algorithm has been designed to reinforce the ideas and the agenda of the owner of the social media. And this is the thing, the fact-checking. The fact-checking is part of the responsibility of the media. You appear on the screens of the people with your name. Then you are responsible for the things you said, and you have to be, as a journalist, having a professional ethics, you have to be demanding of the things you are producing. I have just visited your newsroom, in where there are people checking things because they are journalists. But when the social media are not managed by journalists having a professional ethics, it's only a kind of a speaker for whatever ideas that are running with a different, the speed in which misinformation could spread makes almost impossible to debunk at the same time this idea. Then the lack of fact-checkings is a lack of restraints. You are liable, your TV company is liable, there is a problem that you incur in some, but in these kind of things, nobody is responsible. Then in the European laws, we decide you are responsible for doing things. First, they said, it's impossible. There is so much traffic in the social media that it's impossible in time or timely to immediately get rid of some hate speech. Have you been able to see a blockbuster movie in the social media? Never. Because they have the means to really impede that commercial products to be spread. But when it's about hate speech, extreme right narratives, they don't care, because that creates noise, that creates tension, and they live like unluckily some media on the environment of noise, tensions, polarization, and this is what we have to deal with in election and not in elections, in the normal political life.
Right. So it remains to be seen what effect it will have on society around the world and specifically on elections.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you the recommendations in your report. The very first one is about gender, about women's participation. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yes, gladly. I insisted a lot in my first press conference about it. I said women, 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 because there is a lack of there is a kind of mismatching, a very developed society in which women are elsewhere working, but there are some remains of the old traditional views on the women, even in your labor laws, the work at night and others, even in the of course in the religious laws, there are some cultural background that is creating some difficulties for the women to participate. Then our idea is to be a complete democracy. You have to incorporate to the public life the half of the population that are women, and there are many ways to do. We suggest some, the same way your country introducing the law, a quota for the young people, a quota for the youth. You can introduce the parties the quota for the women. At the same time, you can reduce the guarantees that could be asked for the women to be participate. But it was very sad. Among 38 candidates for the presidential election, not one single woman, and 3 monks. As I said, the percentage of monks is not as high as the percentage of women. The list of candidates has to represent the diversity of the country, and it was very sad. Now you have 22 women in parliament. That's good news. But
it's still less than 10% of the parliament.
It's low. It's very low. It's better than before, but it's low. But there is an issue that has not been underlined properly. 19 of these women being now parliamentarians, they have been selected and appointed and elected on the preferential vote. They were not put in the first position to be parliamentarian. It has been the people voting for them, for the women, who put 19 of them on using the preferential vote in the parliament. Meaning, the people, the voters, were more wiser than parties, because these women replace other male options that were the fair option of the party. And we think not only to protect the right to participate, to be candidates and to reach the position, once they have been selected, they have been protected of some kind of harassment in the social media. Probably this is part of this cultural background. Politics sometimes is considered some nasty thing, and with this idea of overprotection of women, why women is entering in this nasty world of politics. No, this is a right of every citizen, be a female or a male, and we have to protect especially the women, because there is not that kind of harassment in the male parliamentarians, but there are harassment on the female parliamentarians. The Prime Minister Harimi has been harassed in the social media, and then we have to protect the right to create an equal, let's say, fundamental to jump to the position. And when women are in political position, they have to be protected in a different way, because they are suffering a different scale and type of harassment in the social media. And this is one of our proposals, as you mentioned.
Right. Then what about quotas for women in politics? How should that be approached? Now, we have, for the local government bodies, we have a 25% quota. But that remains to be seen what will happen in the future, because 25% again is quite low. After all, more than 50% of the women in this the population are women.
The discussion on quotas in Europe, they occurred during the 80s. There was a lot of ideas about. I mean, quotas is a kind of patronizing, because you are protecting. But the women and the feminist movement, they were strongly supporting the quotas, because it was the way to trigger change in the political culture of the country. But there are, it's not only about saying, let's reserve 25% of the positions in a ballot for the women. Why? What is the reason if you put the women at the end of the list? In a proportional system, they are not to be. But there are many ways to do. For example, in my country, there are an obligation of quotas, and some parties they are obliged to use what we call the sipping, meaning one man, one woman, one man, one woman, one woman. This is a way. There's a way to ensure that you not compliance with the quota, only putting the female at the back of the list. No, and there are many ways to do. Every country could have to deal with sensitivities, but there are many ways to do it, and many countries doing things. And the parties could do. The parties, being not the state, they are free to configure the list in the most suitable way. If there is a law, they are going to be obliged, but they don't need a law to do that kind of things and to put the women in a better position.
So that's an interesting thought to have on the nomination list, woman, man, woman, in that order. Right. So very good proposal.
This sipping system is not in the report. What we are saying is to put some quotas on the candidates, not entering in what type of quotas or what system of quotas.
Well, I shall certainly put it to the politicians who appear on this program, and let's see what they do with the next election. Right. Another area that you have focused on in your recommendations is that of accessibility for differently abled, elderly, and so on. What exactly are we talking about here?
Yeah, we detected a lot of premises in the polling station not being accessible. And this is a problem. There are many problems. The disabled people has to reach the premises.
Yes.
There are, in some countries, there are public systems of people offering buses or taxis or cars to transport the disabled people to the premises, but the premises has to be accessible.
Yes,
meaning you have to create ramps. You have to create only working in the low level and the ground level. There are many ways to do, but this is a minimum thing. There are a lot of premises, a lot of different buildings. It could be a school, it could be a temple, it could be a fire squad station, it could be whatever public space, but at least the physical accessibility is a minimum. Then we can enter in many other ways to do. For example, the visual impaired people, they could have this kind of template in which with Braille language, they could be explored by themselves. The system, and then can vote with a template, plastic template with exactly the same shape. Well, the ballot box in your country, the ballot is enormous, and that creates another problem of secrecy. But this one, the other is the posting vote. There are many group of people not able to reach, for whatever reason, the polling station. You can extend the postal voting. People who is not being in the place in which they are registered for whatever professional reason, and then is going outside and going in another country, another part of the country, and you have to facilitate with the postal voting. Other way is the mobile ballot boxes. So in some countries and systems, there is part of the board of the polling station. They take for 1 hour, 1.5, 2 hours a ballot box special, and they go to the hospitals, private houses in which there are people not able to leave the premises, and they are accompanied by a couple of officials, members of the board, and they are collecting 10, 12, 15 votes, or if it is in a hospital, could be more. But there are it's a kind of fine tuning. Your system is, I have to say, excellent. Your electoral system is well prepared. The way in which the Election Commission manages is absolutely professional. We are praising every institution of the state because you have an excellent record. But there are these fine-tuning things to really reach the highest standards.
Absolutely. And we do want to reach the higher standards. We'll take a short commercial break now. We're in conversation with our chief observer of the election monitoring observation mission of the EU. We'll be right back.
International Edu Expo, organised by EdLocate on 1st February 2025 at the Taj Samudra and on the 2nd of February at the Kandy City Centre Banquet Hall. Call our hotline to register for the event.
Our development era kickstarts from 2002-2005.
If you're off duty, right, you're entitled to do what you want. And Niresh, whether it's pluck coconuts or whether it's scraping the coconuts, they have the freedom to do that.
By having taxes on imports for the food on the poorest of the poor is a big problem.
I think economic inclusion of the rural people is very important to keep the economy going.
Government and state are two things. So time to time we need restructuring. We can't go on. That is the main reason why NPP won.
Face the Nation every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. on TV1.
International Edu Expo, organised by EdLocate on 1st February 2025 at the Taj Samudra and on the 2nd of February at the Kandy City Centre Banquet Hall. Call our hotline to register for the event.
ජාතික මෙහෙවරින් අපි කතා බහ කරන්නේ පුරුෂ පාර්ශවයට කාන්තා පාර්ශවයට වෙනසක් නැතුව ආයුර්වේදයට අනුව ලස්සන වෙන්නේ කොහොමද කියලා.
හොඳම මොයිස්චරයිස් එක තමයි කොමඩු.
යම්කිසි වයස් මට්ටම් වලට පැමිණෙනකොට ඇතිවෙන බෝන් නොවන රෝග තත්ත්වයන් තුලදී කොයි ආකාරයෙන්ද ඇස ආරක්ෂා කරගන්නේ?
බහුලවම අන්ධභාවයට පත්වන රෝගී තත්ත්ව ගත්තොත් ඇත්තටම ලෝකේ ලංකාවේ දෙකෙම නම්බර් 1 ඇත්තටම තියෙන සුද ඇහි සුද.
නිරාමිෂ සිතුවිලි වලින් තමයි පිබිදෙන්නේ. ඒනට ප්‍රශ්නේ ටික වෙලාවක් යනකොට වෙනස් පැත්තකට යන්න පුළුවන්.
මූලික අරමුණ සියදිවි හානි වැළැක්වීම වුණාට ඕනම කෙනෙකුට ඕනම ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඕනම ගැටලුවක් ගැන කතා කරන්න අපිත් එක්ක යොමු වෙන්න පුළුවන්.
ජාතික මෙහෙවර සතියේ දිනවල උදෑසන 11ට.
මේ වසන්තේ මේ ආරාධනය විසේකාර දඟකාර හැඩකාර කුමාරයන්ට සහ කෝල කොමල මනලෝල කුමාරියන්ටයි මේ වසන්තේ සිරස වසන්ත කුමරා සහ කුමරිය ලෙස කිරුළු පළඳින්න දැන්ම සැරසෙන්න වයස අවුරුදු 18ත් 25ත් අතර කුමාරයන් සහ කුමාරියන් මෑතකදී ගත් ඡායාරූපයක් සමග පෙබරවාරි 20 වෙනිදාට පෙර අයදුම් කරන්න. ලිපිනය නිෂ්පාදක සිරස වසන්ත කුමරා සහ කුමරිය ස්ටයින් ස්ටුඩියෝ බොරුපන පාර රත්මලාන. පිවිසෙන්න awurudu.sirasatv.lk.
International Edu Expo, organised by EdLocate on 1st February 2025 at the Taj Samudra and on the 2nd of February at the Kandy City Centre Banquet Hall. Call our hotline to register for the event.
Welcome back. We are in conversation with Mr. Nacho Sanchez Amor, who is the chief observer of the election observation mission of the European Union during the presidential election last year. Nacho, campaign finance, a very important area which was very active during both of last year's elections. Give us your observations on this.
Well, this is a key issue. We praise a lot the fact that your country has an Electoral Expenditure Act, that this is the first step to really try to tackle, because the lack of a level playing field from the financial point of view is one of the problems. Even the fact that to be candidate or to be president has to deposit a guarantee is another, let's say, financial filter. But regarding the electoral expenditure, we praise the fact that you finally have a law. But the problem is the law is incomplete in some sense. The law obliges the candidates to provide to the Election Commission a kind of a report on the expenditure. Only on the expenditure, meaning there is no legal obligation to explain to the public opinion or the state what are the origins of the income.
Where did the money come from?
Yes. And this is a key part, because at least a system to disclose the donations, because the donations are very important to know what could be the agenda for a party, and to disclose the donation, if possible, before the elections.
So that the voters would know and be able to make their decisions.
There are many ways to do so. There are some limitations, for example, limitation on the level, the capping the private donation, to publish the name of the companies that are donating, because a person could donate for ideological reasons, meaning, okay, this is my candidate, I would like to support. There is a kind of a small donation for that. But if there are companies, and if the amount of money of the companies is high, it's a different thing. That it doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's good to know who is financing who. The first is not only expenditure, but also the income. The other is the Election Commission receives the report, and even if they try, we know they try to standardize what kind of paper you have to provide to the Election Commission. First, there were 13 candidates not sending one single piece of paper.
Out of the 38.
Out of 38. Because we know that some of the candidates were fake candidates. Some of them always trying to have some publicity, others being, let's say, acting on behalf of the other real candidates. This is one of the problems. Having 38 candidates is a lot of candidates. And then other thing you can think about is to try to limit the number of candidates in a way that it can be, I think we mentioned that, it's not related to the money that you deposit. No, it's about, for example, to having a number of signatures, because that means you represent something in the society. Not only that you have money to deposit and to be candidate, but to have, I don't know, some thousands of firms, meaning this candidate means something. But these 30 candidates, even they didn't send a paper. They were real candidates, or they were looking for another purpose, the status of being candidate. And for that reason, this is one of the things. You have to standardize the paper you have to send to the Election Commission. It's not understandable that one candidate can send a couple of papers and others hundreds of papers. Then to standardize, if possible, to digitalize the template in a way that could be later compared in a digital way, not only on paper, like it was in this case, but to create some kind of a standard. These are the things you have to send to the Election Commission, and if possible, doing in a way that could be comparable, could be useful if it is in the digital format. This is one. And then what happened? Meaning the Election Commission has not in the law the capability to do anything but publish. But what if this candidate has overcome the limit? What if in the papers you can appreciate some things that are not legal? There are no remedies. This is one of the problems of the law. You have to create the system of verifying, not only to be transparent, publishing the report, but some state authority, it could be Election Commission, the Anti-Corruption Commission, whatever barriers, they have to verify, not only to publish. And this is other thing we recommend to the. So
this would require some amendment to the Campaign Finance Act.
Yes. This is one of the things in which we need some legal changes, and other things. Third-party donation, meaning. There is a company that produces T-shirts with the symbol of the party or the name of the candidate, and they offer you the product, not a money for you to buy the product, but the product itself. There is no way to follow, to track that kind of transactions. And third-party donation or third-party contributions, not in money but in services or in goods, has to be part of this disclosure and transparency on the campaign finance. But again, it's excellent to have a law on that. It has to be refined. For that reason, what I say is you have an excellent system. You have a very professional Election Commission. This was fine-tuning, meaning some minor thing, other minor thing, but it was very obvious during the election. The position of the booth to vote, this carton booth, in some of the layouts of the polling station allows people to be behind the voter. You have to to place the layout, the setting of the polling station in a way that the secrecy is protected. Because having this enormous ballot that is pending from the surface of the table, there was not always sure, not securing the secrecy of the vote, not even political will to do, but some minor mistakes that could be refined.
So you're recommending standardizing the layout of the polling booth,
or at least to instruct the board that nobody can be behind the voter.
Right.
There could be in other places, but behind the voter has to be to protect the secrecy. There are other kind of booths, some curtain, not an open booth, but probably this is more expensive. But at least even using this carton booth, at least to be sure there is nobody behind the voter to protect the secrecy.
Excellent. Another area that you have recommended upon is state resources and the misuse of state resources, such as vehicles and so on.
Civil servants. Yes, this was one of our, I can't say discovery, because this was very traditional. Unluckily, it's very traditional in some countries and places, this use of state resources, and even is considered normal. It is not normal. One thing is the candidate, the other thing is the state, the president, the prime minister, and you have to distinguish clearly in every aspect of the election campaign when a president is acting as a president, going to whatever duty, and the other thing is the candidate, and then you have to clearly distinguish this: who is the candidate, who is the incumbent. And we discovered, we noted that there was a misuse of state resources in many ways. For example, there was the election commission who prohibited one of the campaigns of the government, or lavish promises regarding public wages, or using these last weeks of the tenure for delivering the keys of the new houses. That kind of thing has to be curtailed. And somebody could ask, how? Well, the first answer is very easy. Don't do it. Don't pick up the phone asking things for the public companies. Refrain to doing the traditional inertial ways to use the state. Don't send the message to the responsible of education asking the teachers to do or not to do things during this period, or attend rallies or not attend the rally. It's very easy to tackle this problem. Don't do the traditional things that I'm not talking about the candidate, but the party structures in the medium level that are very accustomed to do. Don't do it. You can instruct your party not to do, and not to use, and not to ask. And in this way, you have a level playing field. I have to say, without disclosing the second report of the parliamentary elections that is going to be in the hands of the government, that apparently the misuse of state resources almost disappeared in the parliamentary election. I said in my press conference after the election, we noted there are a misuse of state resources. Now there is a new administration. You have an excellent opportunity to act differently. Apparently they heard my call, and apparently there was not misuse of state resources in the parliamentary election, and this is excellent news. The question is to solidify this practice, and this is part of our recommendation.
Now, you have also made some recommendations about the state media, all types of state media and their use in elections.
Yeah.
And I believe you have recommended amendments to the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation Act and the Rupavahini Corporation Act.
Yes, to guarantee the professionalism of the public media. It's not only about the public media respecting the time, the TV free time offered to the candidate. This is the more mechanical, easy thing. You have to distribute your time among your candidates. The fact is more cultural. You have to create the system to appoint the responsible of the public broadcasting in a way that could assure some kind of unbiased stance. There are many ways to do. For example, a big majority in the parliament to choose the responsible for the public broadcast, and also calling for the professional ethics of the journalist. The responsibles of the public broadcast can be in any way an activist of whatever party or interest. You are an emanation of the best of the profession, probably, but then you have to act in a way that any comrade, any colleague, any journalist could feel represented in what you do, and for that reason to be unbiased, to be professional, to clearly separate how do you depict the public activity of the president and the political electoral activity of the candidate is one thing that has to be clear. We know what we talk about, meaning in electoral period there could be an overpresence of the president as a president, doing things as a president, but overwhelming, because half the intention of this presence, this let's say enormous amount of presence of minutes, it's transforming in influence or the impression of being more influent, or being more close, or being more easy to remind for the people. But you know very well, when I say you, the professionals of information, that you know very well, and there could be a kind of system to guarantee that a public broadcast is a public broadcast in the sense that it's a broadcast of every candidate and every citizen.
And my final question, because we are running out of time, unfortunately, when you last appeared in September on this program, you were quite outspoken about the use of a curfew
Yes.
on the day of the election. And I think that the government heard you and responded, because let's say it may have been part of the reason, because in the next election there was no curfew.
Yeah. When I went to my flight coming back to Brussels, there was a young guy accompanying me, and he said, recognized me. Well, this is the person. I appreciated a lot your mention of the curfew. It's a young Sri Lankan accompanying me to the plane and expressing that they were happy. And it's a sentiment of you can be the same citizen respected during the morning and dismissed during the evening. This is the same citizenship, the same peaceful, festive people voting and having been praised by the authorities. And this has been the most peaceful elections in the last decade. But how the hell are you imposing a curfew? Since you are saying your citizens are exemplary. And I'm very happy to know, because I only knew about the last not having used the curfew in the last parliamentary election. Now, when I visited Miss Harimi, I'm very happy, but never come back to the other idea of we pamper the citizen to vote, but immediately after the vote you are treated like an uncontrollable mob. No, this is the same citizens. The same citizens in the Aragalaya, the same citizens voting, and the same citizens normally, let's say, celebrating the victory of the party or being sad or whatever decision, but not imposing a curfew like an automatic thing, because that creates the impression of anything can happen. And nothing happened. And I'm very happy to have helped a little bit, to push a little bit the authorities on respecting the voters, the same the morning and in the evening.
Well, thank you very much for voicing those views. And I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you to Mr. Nacho Sanchez Amor, member of the European Parliament and the chief observer of the EU election observation mission for Sri Lanka last year. And thank you to you at home for watching. Don't go away, because the news is coming up next, as always. Have a good evening.